This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So in the last class, we are looking into trying. We are able to. We are trying to create your what is that? The Kubernetes services, and we got an issue, right? So now let's go ahead and let's try to create one more time. So if you remember, I spoke regarding your credentials. So you're accessing part. How can you access your the Kubernetes services or cluster in here? So that we have two things. One is like, you can either go with your user level, the role-based level, and the other one, like, I would like to help my Kubernetes itself to go ahead and try to, manage my access levels in here. So yesterday, I have a small mistake in here by enabling the option. For that reason being, it became invalid. So this particular used to be authentication actually. So this has changed to access. Of course, both are similar, but the options inside that got changed a lot. These are the new things which came up actually. Okay, so let me go ahead. Let me try to create my resource group, VRIT-RG, and my cluster name, VRIT cluster. So I have to create my east to west, and I don't want to have any my availability zones in here. So removing it, my version, and my sizes, my node size. So I have to select my VM size in here. So I'm ready to go with my, the old basic one, what I have. 2 is okay. And I'm trying to go with my manual scale with my one node in here. So click on node pools. So if you want to create, a one more node with your different standard size, then you can add your node pool and all those things you already saw. So I don't want to have any new nodes created in here. I want to go with only one node with my standard size what we have in here. So next is access. So here, this is like enable. So enable means like, you are trying to go with a role based access in here. For any specific user, you want to provide the access for any specific role, you want to provide the access, then you can assign this one. But as I told you, we would like to go with what? We would like to go with my AKS only to manage my Azure services in here. So I don't want to go with my role based things in here. So just disable this option in here. Next is networking pieces. I would like to manage my Kubernetes again. The same networking also I would manage my Kubernetes in here. And integration, yes, I need to create my ACR in here. So VRIT ACR, something like, solution, whatever you have in here. So enable the user access, because if you do not enable this, your admin access will be disabled. That means you may not able to, push your data images or pull your images from your ACR. So to enable that, click on OK. So in advanced tags review plus create. So only the within access over there I have mentioned like enable. So disable that so that it can move to my management of your Kubernetes. If you enable that, it's trying to you are trying to provide the access for a specific user. So here, if in a project level, nobody will provide you with a specific user in here, but they are trying to move to my Kubernetes levels in here. So click on create. So this may take a little bit time to come up in here. So meanwhile, let's try to see whatever we have within our Kubernetes environment. What are different options we can run in here. So I believe like you already people had installed your AKS install CLI in here. So you can go ahead and as usual, once your Kubernetes services have been created, that means nodes are being created for us, right? So once you have that particular done, so you can run this particular syntax to where your Kubernetes can manage your access. So can create a new configuration file in here within your C drive in here. So this is like .q folder will be created automatically by your Kubernetes. Within that, you can see your configuration file will be available in here. So this configuration file will contain your actually the respective things like the token or the user IDs, all those things with respect to your Kubernetes in here. So this is like general practice what we do in your real time as well. So where we would like to go ahead and we would like to run the things in here. I mean, want to manage my accessing based upon my Kubernetes only. Okay, so this is like earlier we saw. So I'm trying to remove this one, it's not required. And after coming to this particular part in here, so you can run multiple commands like kubectl get nodes or kubectl get pods to get the node information of my the cluster what you're trying to create in here. Two, you can run multiple pods within the nodes in here. Within the same node, I can mention my pods. What kind of pods in here? So what is the syntax to run a pod? So it's kubectl run, and this is your the pod name you're trying to mention. Within this particular pod name, you have to mention your image name what you want to run in here. So this is the image where I'm trying to run in a pod called as web server. So automatically my container name also will be the similar kind of things from my web server only. This name belongs to for both pod as well as my container internal. So overall, I could say that like we have to mention the image what need to be run and which pod, what is the name of the pod you have to run in here. So once you run this particular the syntaxes, automatically you can see a new pod created in here and running successfully. So you can see the pod information regarding using your kubectl get pods in here. Similarly, if you, for respect to my pod level in here, I can delete my pod, I can describe my pod to see more information for pods in here and all those things. Okay, so here what we do is we're trying to simply run the command lines to have your pod created. Similar to that, what I do is like you also have a kind of YAML files, YAML scripts to run your pods in here. So this is not the only way. This is like a command line you can go with, but at the same time you'll also have a YAML scripts to have your to have your pod run, to have your pod created and run in your container in here. So you can also have the YAML files in here. So what you have in a YAML file, so is it like YAML file what we saw earlier, and that is equal to here as well or not? So generally it's not the case. So you will, what are the content you saw earlier in the YAML file will not be same with the content what you will be seeing for my Kubernetes environment YAML file to run your pod in here. So some both are little bit different. So not little bit, totally different, I would say. Okay, you will not see even a small thing similar within my YAML file of earlier things and now in here. So how do your YAML file look like in here? What are the different components are required within YAML file to run your pod in here? We'll see all those things in story one by one in here. So let me check it out. It's still running. So once your deployment is done, then you can go ahead and you can run your command successfully in here. You should be able to get your the node information, and you should be able to run your pods within the particular node in here, and also you should be able to get your pod information as well. So let's wait to complete this deployment part in here. This will take a little bit time to come up. So once this is done, so you can go ahead and run your multiple things what you have in here. So we can run your the so along with pods, I have my node information in it. This two we already knew that. So what is NS namespace? What do you mean by service in here? So all those things you need to understand in the upcoming classes. Okay. Let's wait for this to complete so that we can move ahead from there onwards. So I think it's completed. Yeah, still have two more. So meanwhile, any questions, guys? Yeah, it's done. Very good. So let me go ahead and what is the name? Go to my resources in here, and this is my VRT cluster and sending in my VRT-RG. Very good. So let me copy the same old thing what we have already. AZ AKS get hyphen credentials hyphen G your resource group name and hyphen N your VRT cluster name in here. Just copy this one and go to your command prompt push it here. So once you hit on enter, what this will do, as I told you, this will go ahead and you try to create a configuration file within your .q folder in here. So this is a configuration which is created yesterday. So it's saying that there's a configurations are already existing in here cube config file. Do you want to override it? Yes, please go ahead and override it. So is there with a different name or same name? They will have same name in here. You want to override it. It's been merged. So if you go back in here now, you can see it's 3:24, 10:47 a.m. in the morning. Okay. So this is like when you get this message out in here merged as a current content, that means you have now the access to my BRIT in here. So now first step. So now go ahead and try to run the commands. What is that? Kubectl get nodes. So this should pull your nodes information. See here within my cluster, I have my node pools. When you click on your node pools at the in here under my settings in here, so I can see my agent pool succeed running in here. So based up, this is what it's been created based upon my Linux operating system in here. So if you want, you can upgrade your update your image, upgrade your Kubernetes, scale your node pool. If you want to have one more node to be added, you can do that. Or if you want, you can delete the things in here as well. So you can make a editing part you have in here. Of course, you have the same thing in here as well. Upgrade Kubernetes, upgrade image, all this. Upgrade Kubernetes version. What you want to upgrade version, upgrade your image. So scale node pools. You want to increase your nodes, number of nodes in here. Everything you have, the same kind of information should be provided in here. See, I got the information. So 2 minutes back it got created version 1.21.9 in here. Very good. So now let me go ahead and ctl get pods. So this is a I'm just creating my nodes in here. So I have my node ready, but I don't have any pods running inside that. So what is syntax? As I told you, to run my pods in here, kubectl run, provide the pod name and the image you want to run in here. So I'm trying to copy the same thing. Go back here and hit on enter. So immediately what happens, there's a pod got created, name with my web server got created and it's running in here. Now if we hit on top arrows to get the pods, so I should see my pod running in here. Okay, so you can see the pod running in here automatically. So you cannot have the external IP address for this pods to view what kind of application you're running in here. So you can view that using your service. That's a different story again. Suppose you want to see the IP address of your pods as well, then you can go with a little bit -o/y. So you can see my IP address. So this is your internal IP address of my pod. So this IP address has been used for your connecting between your multiple pods within the same node what you have in here. So this IP address is not being used for my external purpose. Suppose I'm trying to copy my IP address in here and go ahead on your web page, hit an enter. So it should say something, you should throw an error. You're not running in here. Yeah, it's running. So it should throw an error or something, the site can't be reached, something like that. So this is not for your external purpose. This is purely for my internal purpose, what I have in here. So let's go ahead and let's try to run a few more things. We saw that now kubectl get pods, we saw get nodes, we saw in here. So before deleting, let me see the description of my pod in here. So kubectl describe pod and my pod ID. So let's see that now. Kubectl describe pod and what's the pod ID? So the name. Hit on enter. So you try to see now, you try to show you the things like what actually happened, what are the different events that happened for your respective pod in here. So successfully assigned my web server pod to my node, because you know that the pods will be running within my node level, right? So the pod is assigned to node in here. So pulling the image nginx, successfully pull my image nginx in 4.19 seconds, created container web server. See, so whatever the name you mentioned as part of your pod, the similar name will be assigned to my container as well. See, create a container web server, and within my container now my image, what you have that has been running in here. So it started my container called as web server in here. Okay, so these are all, the different kind of things you have in here. At the same time, you can see a lot much information in here, like so name, web server, default space. I'll talk about my default spaces. So what do you mean by namespace in here? We have lot many namespaces available. I'll talk about that later on. So which node you're trying to run in here, what is the status, what is the IP address of my pod which is running internet to my container in here. So all this information, and you can show you the events, what happened, what kind of image you're running in this particular pod or container in here. Everything will be shown clearly in here for us. So just for description purpose, you can go within here. And we already mentioned this one, get pods -oy to get the information of IP addresses in here. And you can also have something kind of logs in here. kubectl logs and pod ID just for your log information, just in case if you want to view anything in here. So kubectl logs and your web server name. So I'd like to pull you the logs, list of the logs. So what's currently it's trying to pull my Nginx 1.21.6 version in here and start working, and now this in progress. So it's a kind of a log information they're trying to provide in here with respect to my the pod what you're trying to talk in here. So getting the log information, or getting the description of the pod, what event happened with respect to my pod in here, what is the container got created, or what is the image is running within my pod in here, a container in here, everything will be mentioned in here. So we already saw how can you run a pod, the same thing. So you already saw this particular part in here. So if you want to delete any pod, same thing, kubectl delete pod and your pod name. So you can mention the same thing in here, kubectl delete pod, and what is my pod name? My pod name is something like web server. Hit an enter. Automatically my pod has been deleted. My pod web server has been deleted in here. So pod deleted means I have no more images running in here. So my still again my node comes in back to my normal stage. So where it doesn't contain any pod inside it. So if you want to again check it out, so kubectl get pods. So no resources found. So I don't see resources in here in my default namespace. So currently no resources found in because I have deleted that. So this is like running your multiple kind of, I'll talk about this last one later on, but these are the basic commands where you can run it to get the information of your pod, to run your pod, to get information of your nodes, all those things in here. Okay, so now as I told you, so here we can run your pod using your command line, kubectl run web server -- image in here. At the same time, you can also run your pod using the YAML file as I told you. So the YAML file, what you saw earlier and what you see now will be totally different in here. So earlier within your YAML pipeline, so what you have in here, when you go with the CI/CD pipeline, you have a stages underneath that you have you have a stage, and underneath stage you have a jobs. Underneath that, and then you have a job one. Under your job you have your step, and under steps underneath that you have your task, right? So this is your actual things. You have task one, or you have a task two, whatever you want, you can go and mention things in here. So this is your kind of process, or the kind of the flow chart or tree level things we followed when you saw earlier CI/CD pipelines. But now these things will not be there in here. So this is not there. So what else we'll be having here is like within my Kubernetes environment, when we talk about my YAML scripts in here, mostly we'll be having four things. One is like the version, what is the API version you have in here. Second thing, what kind of things you're trying to run in here. Is it like is it a pod you're trying to run in here, or is it like your service you're trying to run in here, or is it like deployment you're trying to run in here. So we'll talk about all these things later on. So the kind, just here, I have to mention, okay, this is the pod I'm trying to run in here. Okay. So when you talk about the pod in here, earlier when you're trying to run this, thing, what you mentioned your image, you mentioned the name of my pod, right? So this is what my name of my pod is. This is like a what? This is a kind of a metadata to my pod. Similarly, you also mentioned what is the name of my image. At the same time, you have to mention your tag number as well if necessary. If you do not mention here, what does it mean? You're trying to go with your latest tag. If you're trying to mention some version, it means it's the tag number where you want to download it and you want to run in a pod level in here, right? So you're trying to mention your tag number, your version name. At the same time, you're trying to mention your pod name as well. So the kind of a metadata you have in here. The similar case here as well. So after kind, you'll be having your, some kind of specifications. For that, you have a metadata. So metadata where it contains your image name, your the tag number. Oh, sorry, it's not image name. Very sorry. So here you'll be having your what is the name of the pod you're trying to go within here. Something like you have mentioned something your web server, right? The same thing in here. So your name of the pod, the what is the details of your pod. You have to mention your metadata, and here you will be mentioning your what is the image name, what is the tag number, all those things. So whatever you did earlier I have run this particular command line. So what are the details you have in this particular command line? What are the details you have in this command line? The similar details you're trying to mention here as well, but you're trying to mention in a different process, like different, based upon the flow chart what you have in here, the options what you have in here. So kind is mentioned like what kind of things you want to run in here. I want to create a pod. Okay, what's the name of the pod? That comes under my metadata. And what is the name of the image and your tag number? That comes under my specifications. So these four things will be there with respect to my YAML pipeline for my, for creation of my pod or running of my pod in here. So let me show you now the actual pipeline what I have. This is my pod. This is my YAML pipeline. So you can see my version, you can see my kind, you can see my metadata, and you can see my specifications. So these four are mandatorily you have to mention within your YAML pipeline to have your pod created in here. So version, it can be anything. You can mention anything in here. Version 1, version 2, version 3. So it's not a anything you can mention in here. But this is mandatory. So you have to mention that okay, I'm trying to create a pod in here. I'm trying to create a pod. So what's the name of the pod? Is the name of the pod in here comes under my metadata, and you have to follow some naming standards and say web server in here. So you can see similar to a JSON format again, but here it's more simplified. So you no need to have your double quotes, all those things. At the same time, you can also see some kind of things with respect to your normal YAML pipeline as well, right? So you can see like hyphen stages, hyphen task. Similarly here as well, you have a hyphen name, all those things in here. So it's like a combination, I would say. So normal JSON format as well as normal YAML pipeline what you have in here. So what you're trying to mention, the pod within my metadata, mention my web server in here. This is a label, just like so kind of application. What you're trying to name of the application, like so saying it's kind of application here, not. So this is not a mandatory part. This is your mandatory part in here. And coming to my specifications, coming to my container, yes, this is image where I want to go with, and this is my port number of my image what you have in here. So this is a kind of format you have to follow to run your things within my Kubernetes environment using my YAML pipeline. Okay, so whatever you have in your normal command line, the similar things here also you have, but in different manner, in different process. So let me go ahead and try to run this particular part now. So exit. Before going forward, what I need to move to my path where my pipelines or my YAML pipelines are available. So scripts are available, sorry. Copy and D drive, CD, and I would like to run my things in here. So what is syntax to run my YAML? So normally when you want to run your YAML files, what is syntax in here? So you can see here kubectl apply. I want to apply the things in here. So -f forcefully what you want to apply. So I want to run my things pod.yaml. So there's the same thing I have in here, right? Pod with my extension YAML in here. Okay, so this is the syntax you have to follow when you want to run or execute your YAML file in here. So this is the syntax. So let me try to start running this. Let me try to enter it and see whether we're able to create the pod or not. So currently what the pod you have, I don't have any resource available in here. So hitting on enter. Now this will go ahead and this will try to, try to create the new pod. See, pod web server got created successfully in here. So how do you create that? Using my YAML pipeline or YAML file in here. If you go and check for my pod again, get pods, whatever it is, I can provide or not. So I can see my new things running up in here. See, I can see my pod is running. Okay, so this is again your IP address, which has been just created 40 seconds ago, which is this IP address again used for my internal purpose only. You can't use it for external purpose, as I told you earlier. Okay, so this is like you can run your pods, you can have your pods in here. So similar to this one, now if you want to go ahead, so it's the same thing. You have a kubectl apply -f pods in here. So now here what you have only one YAML pipeline created. So now again, when you try, one pod is running in here successfully. Now if you try to go ahead and if I want to delete my things in here, by running a command in here, what will happen? It will go ahead and try to delete my web server in here. It will try to delete it automatically. So once you delete it, like you will not see any more pods running within my nodes in here. So that is the nature of my normal way of running in here. Normal way of running in here. But I have a concept here where I want to create multiple pods with the same image in here. Okay, so what I want to do, I would like to create, so this is like only one pod, one container, and if you delete it, that's gone forever. So now what I want to do is like, I want to create multiple pods using the same image. So I have such a situation. Can we create such kind of things in here? At the same time, if I delete any one of the pod, so any one of the pod in here, I should get, or I should create the pod automatically based upon the number of pods you're trying to create in here. Suppose you're trying to create multiple pods. For example, you want to create 10 in here using the same image. So now if I delete one of the pod in here, actually should be 9 now because I've created only one of the pod. But after deleting my image in here, one of the pod in here, I should see my again 10th pod to be created automatically. So that 10th pod should be again created automatically in here. So do we have such a scenario? Yes, we do have. And such kind of the scenario, the such kind of concept here we called as deployments. So deployment is the one where you're trying to deploy group of pods in here. You're trying to deploy group of pods with a scale set. So you can mention how many numbers you want to create, how many pods you want to create, how many pods you again want to reduce the scale up and scale down. So you can mention the pod number in here. So using the same image. So all the pods contain the same image in here. So if I delete any one of the pod in here, the pods you have deleted, that should be recreated automatically with my new unique identity. So such kind of concept we can call it as a deployment. So when you're trying to run your single pod in here, and if you're trying to delete that particular pod, that has been deleted forever. So you can't revert it again. So you can't see that back again. But deployment is not the case. So deployments is the one where you can create multiple pods, group of pods in here, and using this particular pods, what you want to do, you can go ahead and you can, if you want to delete only one of the pod in here, that should be recreated automatically by your Kubernetes. So I should not be gone forever once I create any one of my pod in here. So such kind of concept coming under my deployments. So how can you run this deployment in here? So similar to my pod.yaml, I can also go with the same thing like deployment.yaml in here. But what do my deployment.yaml contain? So this also contains the similar kind of things, the version, kind, metadata, and specifications. But one extra thing in here is like, you'll be having your replicas. Replicas in the sense, what is the, how many pods you want to create in here? Is it like 10 or is it like 20? How many pods you want to create? So that need to be mentioned using your replica. So this is only the extra part you can see when you try to go with the deployments, and when you try to compare with your pod, you can see all extra things like replicas in here. So I'll show you both. See now. Okay, this is, let me open my pod first. So this is my pod in here. Here it is deployment as well. So I have my deployment, and I have a pod in here. So this is the one you have extra. Just removing it. Now just compare both in here. See, I can see my API version in here. I can see my API version in here. The kind, here it's pod, here it is deployment. Metadata, web server, name will be different. Labels, application, and the specifications. So specification, you can see the image name, the port number, image name, all these port numbers common. So only extra part what you have within your deployment is what? My specifications. Why do we have this one? We need this because I want to mention my replicas. So based upon the number what you have in here, those many pods will be created by using the same, image in here. And by unfortunately or by mistake, if you delete any one of the pod, not a problem. Automatically my pods will be recreated based upon the number. So what are the number you mention in here to make the things into sync, it'll try to recreate the pods again in here. So when you want to go and when you want to create a group of pods with respect to my when a Kubernetes environment, and if anything goes wrong in between, I want to recreate them automatically. If anything delete by default, I mean by mistake, not a problem. It try to maintain the number what you mentioned in here. So if you try to go 20 in here, 20 pods will be there. If I try to go with just 2 in here, 2 pods will be created in here for us. Okay, so only this is only the extra part you have apart from your pods what you saw earlier. So let me go ahead and let me try to run this as well. So this name is like web server 2. Don't save it. I'm trying to copy deployment. Okay, let me copy this one. Yeah, apply. So instead of pod, I'm trying to run my YAML in here. Sorry, what is that? Deployment.yaml in here. Hit on enter. So now what will happen? See, my deployment web server 2 got created successfully. So now you see your kubectl get pods. See how many you will be seeing. I can see 2 pods with the same name web server 2, and you can see a unique identity has been created for each and every pod in here. So I can see 2 pods are running successfully in here. Now if you go ahead and let me try to make a change in my deployment, let me make to my 20 for example. Go and save it, and let me try to run one more time. So it's been configured now, it's been changed. Now you see your get pods in here. See, that few are already started running in here, you are started running creating container creating in here. See, you ready to container, create the container first, and within my container my image will start running in here. So just 10 seconds ago, the one which you see 51, it's already there and start running earlier, and the other ones which just started creating my container, it's already start running in here, and it's on the way to complete the total process of my 20 pods. Rerun it again. Now you should be able to see all of my things are running in here, and everyone what you see here has their own unique identity. This one will not be repeated in here. Now let me go ahead and let me try to delete one of my pod, or let me let me try to reduce the count in here, so that will be let me go with just 5. So hit now again deploy, apply my deployment. So it should be again configured. Now try to look for my pods. So now see, start terminating my rest of the pods. It try to keep only the 5 and start terminating my rest of my pods. And so I can see 1, I can see 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is like we do not have any control which pod to be terminated, which pod to be maintained in here. So everything will be taken care by your Kubernetes only. So when you rerun one more time in here, see, with respect to the pods, that's what I'm saying. You cannot have your IP addresses. We cannot connect your pods individually. So you can connect them using your load balancer. I mean, connecting using your services. I'll come to that particular point later on. Okay. So now, if I go back, hit on again, get the pod level information. So now I can see just 5 pods running in here. Okay. So now let me go ahead and delete one of the pod. Kubectl delete pod and the pod name. So I'm trying to go with something like starting with 6fpdc, something like this. Hit on enter. So now this particular pod has been deleted. So as normal way, we know that, so this has been deleted now. Normal way you should have only 4, right? Now if you go back and check your pod details again, still I can see 5 pods running in here. So you can see just got created in here. So this 9B81J, I don't see anywhere in here. At the same time, 6F PDC, you don't see anywhere in here. So that is deleted and new thing is being created automatically in here. So that is the beauty of your deployment, what you have in here. So this is different between my deployment and my the pods which you are running. So suppose now, okay, I want to view my things, or I want to, without going to my this scripting level, can I manage my replicas in here? Suppose you can do that, and that can be done using this command kubectl scale. So what you want to do in here, I'm trying to run my web server 2 in here. So I want to scale this as per my own wish. So how can you run using the command line? By run this command in here. kubectl scale deployment your web server 2. So just provide the name, actual name what you have in here. So these things have been generated by your Kubernetes to make sure it's a unique identity. But actually when I'm trying to run my pod in here, this is what I mentioned. So it's the same thing, deployment web server 2 and -- replica equals to 10. So when you run this one, automatically it should be scaled. See, I can see my scaled in here, and when I run my pods in here, I should be able to see my 10 pods running now successfully. See, 5 seconds ago. So these are created my just 5 seconds ago in here. That is how you can scale up or scale down. So when if I go back in here and I would like to say, okay, go with 1 only, just simple 1. So automatically it will scale up again. Now if you see the pods, you can see the pods are getting terminated. Already few of them got terminated. So I can see only one pod of my running in here. So using my command line also, you can manage this replicas, whatever you want to go with in here. Okay. So this is your kind of replica managing things in here, and running things out based upon your pods and your deployments. So now,
Um,
yeah,
how many replicas can we do? The maximum and the minimum,
maximum minimum.
like 1 and 10, or we can do
Minimum
100.
will be one for sure. The maximum, let me check that. Let me write down. Maximum number of pods per replica set. Of course, maximum number of pods you can go up to 110, right? You have 110 already, right? So you can, I believe, you can go with 110 only for deployment as well. Let me check because this all the things are running one node in here. So the maximum number of pods you can create per node is 110. We already saw that. Let me check that. So you should see all those things are started running in 110 pods. And let me go with more number. Let me check. Oh, and this is scale. So the maximum with deployment number of pods we can create for deployment. This many. So much it is 1,50,000 total pods you can create per deployment. Very good question, Buddha sir. Okay. So getting back to just one. Everything will be starting terminating. Only apart from this one. Still terminating. It'll take time because a lot many pods we have in here. Let's go.
Is there
So
option?
now,
Isn't
yeah,
there an option that you said -F, like force stop the logs of termination? Is there anything like that in this?
no. So terminating, it will be automatically done. So we no need to, once you make a change in the number, that will be, this is like your force terminating only. Because what are the things you're running in here, you're trying to terminate them in forcefully. So the
Okay.
replicas, what you mentioned in here, this is like we are trying to do it forcefully level in here. So you don't need to mention again any forcefully -F, all those things in here.
Okay.
Okay. How much size these pods will be? So the size can be, based upon the image what you have in here. So if the application is huge application, then you can have the size will be more. If you have a tiny application, the size will be less. It's purely based upon the application what you're trying to run in here. So next is like, within my Kubernetes level. So I do have one more thing. Let me go with my diagram. So generally, you have your, so like you have an application, like you have YouTube, for example. So what you have done, you are here, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to send a request to my front end. What you have in here, front end you have in here, front end. I'm trying to push my things in here, the request, and what front end will do, will push my request back to my back end, and whatever you get in here, so the things will be pushed from get back to my backend in here. So this is a kind of response what I get, what I got from my database level, and based upon this I can things will be played in here. Okay, so this is what just one request. So that within your real-time perspective, or within your so generally level, within a YouTube you may be having millions of requests at one point of time. So is it like my front end can handle all those requests at the same time in here? It may or may not. It's purely based upon the IOPS what you have in here, right? So now to make it, all the requests to be maintained by only one front-end image, one front-end pod, it may be difficult for me. So this is my, I would say, front-end pod in here. Similarly, this is my back-end pod where it's containing all the respective parts of my backend. So only one pod what you have in here may not able to manage all the requests what you get from the end users. So what I'll do, instead of having one pod in here, I will try to maintain my multiple pods. So I'll try to have my multiple pods in. So this is something like, the kind of deployment what you're trying to create in here. So I would say this is a kind of a deployment where I'm having my multiple pods with the same kind of, the front end level of things what you have in here. So let me get it back. And yeah, so this is my front end deployment. This is my front end deployment. So now whenever your request is coming in here, so which pod has to take the request? Is it like this pod has to take the request, or is this pod has to take the request, or this pod has to take the request? Because everybody do not want to work in here. Okay, you do it or you do it in here. So there should be someone who can monitor or who can send your request to a respective front-end pod so that they can process the request to my backend in here. So who is that? So that is nothing but mine called as your service. Okay. So I have one more thing in here, and that is called as my service. So who is the service in here? Service is something like, who is trying to doing like a, traffic. So controlling the traffic in here. This is my front end service. So they're trying to, so what are the requests you are trying to push in here? So this request will be sent first to my service, first. So what service will do? Service will check like, okay, which pod is free to process. So similarly, you already have your Kubernetes architecture, your master and your nodes concept. The same thing in here. So this is kind of acting like a master who's trying to take the request from my end user, and this front end service will try to check which pod is free enough to run my process or to push my process to my backend in here. Okay, you are free in here. Go ahead, push this particular request to my backend and pull my response back in here. So similar to that, what this will do, this will go and directly go to my backend in here. Again, I may push one more request to my this particular pod in here. Similarly, I may send one more request to my the third pod as well in here. So now automatically I'm getting how many? I'm getting 3 requests. I may be getting 3 requests at one point of time. So this backend again maybe or may not be able to manage these many requests at one point of time. So what I will do, I will also try to multiply into multiple pods so that my things can be managed easily. So instead of maintaining all the requests for one people, I'm trying to share my things to my multiple people in here. So what I'll do again, I'll try to create one more pod at the back end for mine and one more pod in here. So these things are what, like again, it's like a group of pods which are been created. So I would say this is nothing but my kind of a deployment, backend deployment, where it contains my group of pods in here. So this is my back end deployment in here. So what is this doing? This is trying to create a multiple pods for backend related stuff in here. So whenever this particular part is trying to push in here, again, you will take nobody will try to accept to work in here. So which pod I need to push my request in here? This is the pod which has been which has been assigned to process the request. So when I'm trying to go in here, I can see multiple pods. So to which pod I have to assign things in here? So I'm confused. So I cannot go and assign to anything to anybody in here. For that reason, what I'll do, I will try to have one more kind of service as you have your front-end service in here. Okay, let me delete this. So I'll be having one more people in between coming up, and this would be my backend service in here. So whatever the request you are having, that will be sent to my backend service, and backend service will try to look, okay, which pod is free enough to get the request back in here. So try to push your respective pods, and from here to my service, and from here back to my pod in here, and again from here back to my front end service in here, where I can go ahead and we can watch it. So this is like what? This is my front end deployment. This is my back end deployment, where are these deployments are being maintained or controlled by my back end service and my front end service in here. So service is also one of the component, as you see your pods or your deployment similar to that. Service is also one of the things which is trying to talk to its own respective pods only. So front end service will not talk to my back end pods, or back end service will not talk to my front end service in here directly. So we also have some kind of command lines to make sure which service is talking to which pods in here. So we also have the particular command line in here. We'll try to run that later on. Okay, so we have to create a service. So first of all, and I need to tag that to my deployment in here, so that this front end service will talk to only my front end deployment, whereas my back end service will talk only to my back end deployment only in here. So how can you do that? So see here, I'll show you my service as well. So I can see my front end service, and I can see my front end deployment. I can see my back end service, and I can see my back end deployment as well in here. So when you double click on your front end service, so this is your service related YAML file. So again, you can see the same old stuff, version, kind. So kind in here got changed from deployment or pod to service in here. So metadata is nothing but the name of the service you want to go it in here, and specifications in here. So this one, why we require this is the one, it has some kind of environment here, where this is the one which has been trying to tag to your respective deployments. So what are the name you mentioned in here, the exact name should be tagged with respect to my deployment in here. That means when you have a common name, your front end service, this particular service will only talk to those pods which are having the environment equals to front end. Let me open my front end deployment as well. So see here. See, this is my deployment. You already see the name is web server, and I can see my environment equals to front end. So the same name what you see in here, I'll be mentioning everywhere. My front end at my replicas, my front end, and specification at my image level. I can mention my things in here. So this name, if you make any small change as well, suppose there's a small space in here, then your front end service or the service what you have in here will not talk with your deployments, all the 5 pods what you have in here, because there's a small change in my spelling in here, or the small change within my wording level in here. So how can you tag your service and your the web server in here, service and your deployments in here, by using your word front end. So you can put any name in here, you can even put your name as well, not a problem. The only thing is like, what are the name you mentioned within my environment of my deployment, the exact same name should be available within my service as well. Then only these things will be tagged to each other in here, or else they'll not talk to each other. So that's how it happens in here. So how can you run your service? Exactly the same thing as you did earlier, right? No, for example, let me go with apply, and here I can mention like where is my service? Okay, it's in my service demo. So I need to navigate to this particular path first, so that I can have my now directory. So I can see my service front end and service back end in here. So now let me go with my service. Let me run this particular part in. So how do you run it? Kubectl apply -f and just run your YAML pipeline what you have in here. Okay, spelling, there's no space. So now your service will be created for us automatically in here. So it's trying to take a little bit time. Yeah, service has been created successfully. So now at the same time, let me check my pods, what I have in here. kubectl get pods. Okay, I have only one, that's web server 2. So within my service, within my within my deployment, I have the name, it's a web server. So web server 2 is different, web server is different. So I can go ahead and I can run my deployment or front end as well. So for that reason being, kubectl apply -f, and instead of this one, try to mention your front end service. So I'm trying to remove the name and hit on enter. So now I can see my web services are created. Service has been created successfully and my deployment has been created successfully in here. Similarly, let's move on with my second one as well. So let me try to create my backend service first, and then you can go with the deployment first, or then you can go with your service. Also not a problem in here. So now let me go with my service dot backend. We'll have with this one only. And hit on enter. So now I'm able to create 4 things: your front-end service, back-end service, front-end deployment, and my back-end deployment. So how many I need to? I'm running within my front-end. It's 5, and its name should be starting with web server in here. Similarly, don't save. Similarly, how many were running with my back-end? It's 3. So totally 8 pods should be running in here. 3 should be app server with name app server, and 5 should be web server in here. So go and check it out now. kubectl get pods. Yeah, I can see 5 with my web server, and I can see 3 with my app server. Similarly, what about my services? So kubectl, if you want to get services, don't type in services, just type svc in here. See, I can see my svc app server created, and as you can see svc web server got created in here. Okay, so now you can see here 2 things: cluster IP and external IP. Yes, this is the one, you can use it and you can place it in your web page so that you can see what kind of images are being tagged to my service in here. Okay, so if you go back in here, Control C, copy this particular IP address, and see, it's welcome to Nginx. Similarly, I can have my backend as well. Control C, go back and place it here. I can see it works. So these are 2 different images you have in here, for my front end separately and my back end separately in here, and those the pods can be accessed using your external IP address in here. So the same thing has been repeated in all the pods, right? All the 3 pods have the same the services on the images within my same, all of my front end also are some the same images in here. So those things can be done using my external IP address. So how do I get this external IP address in here? So this one you can get on based upon the mentioning the type equals to load balancer. Okay, if you, since you're mentioning this particular part, that's the reason being you are able to see your IP address coming up in here. For example, let me take this. Let me remove this one in here, and this is my front end. I'm trying to go ahead and try to save it and try to run your front end service one more time. I'm trying to reconfigure in here. Yeah, this is my back end. Let me go make this as a front end and enter. Now what it will do, it will be reconfigured. So it's reconfigured now. So now go and check your SVC. See, I don't see my external IP address anymore in here. So if you want to view, if you make your pods to be accessed by end user, if you want to make that particular things to be accessed, you have to mention your type equals to load balancer. Then only you are able to provide your external IP address in here. If you remove your load balancer from there as a type in the service YAML, that by default it will be taken as your cluster IP, which is nothing but these are my internal IP addresses in here. If you mention or do not mention, by default this will be created because these are my internal IP addresses what you have in here. But to have my external IP address, for sure you have to mention it's like a kind of a load balance, then only you can get the things back in here. So going back again and try to replace it, save it again and try to run one more time. This is what my front end, right? Hit on enter. So reconfigured again. Yeah, now go ahead and try to see my SVC. I should be able to see my sits pending. It's trying to create your things for you. And now I can see my 20.116.40 in here. So this is a new IP address which is being created. So you will not have any static things in here. This has been maintained by your Kubernetes environment. Okay, so this is about your the pod, what are the things, images you're trying to run in your pods, you're able to see using this particular IP address in here. But I want to make sure whether this particular service is really talking to my the pods. kubectl get pods -o wide in here. Small letters. kubectl get pods -o wide. So these are my IP addresses of all the pods which are running in here. So these are my backend, and this is my front end pods. So see my backend pod app service related things in here, and you can see this service should talk to what? Only these 3 pods in here. Similarly, SVC web server should talk to what? Only this particular 5 pods in here. How can you make sure that particular point in here? So I can see now 10 to 44 stars like 140, 141, 142, and these are the 3 things for your app services. Coming to my web services, I can see like 135, 136, 137, 138, and 139. So how can you make sure that these IP addresses are being communicated with respect to my these particular 2 services only? So for that we have one syntax called as kubectl get endpoints. Get endpoints. When you run this particular thing, they'll clearly tell you what is the final destination for your respective service what you have in here. So this is your default service. Forget about this one. So this is what we have created. So app service talking to what? My 140, 141, and 142. So I can see the same thing, right? 140, 141, 142. Exposed to what? To my 80 ports in here. Similarly, my web service, I've been talking to whom? 135, 136, see 135, 136, 137, 138, and 130. 2 more we have in here. So this is how you can make sure that this particular service is talking to only these IP addresses in here, only these particular pods in here, but not to any other pods what you have in. Okay, so this is like how can you get it? By using your command line called as kubectl get endpoints. This is very important. Okay, where you can make sure where it's talking to in here, right? So this is like you can create your services, you can have your pods running in here and all those things. So now after having this particular things run, services and everything running in here, the only thing is the problem in here is like wherever you go, I can see the things running in what I can see my things have been placed hard coded values in here. Values have been hard coded, right? So if you go to deployment, I can see wherever you see all the things have been hard coded. So I don't want to have my hard code values, because for one it's okay. When I want to run the second one, I have to make my name change, or I have to make my environment change in here. So every time when I'm trying to run my pods in here or deployments in here, I need to make my name changes, or I have to make my things changes in here automatically, manually every time in here. So which is not really correct. So do we have any option where we can have a parameterization kind of concept as we had earlier, the variabilization concept in here? Yes, we do have, and that particular concept within your Kubernetes environment is called as Helm charts. Okay, so because the parameterization is not so simple and not so it's not similar to what you saw till now. So earlier when you say parameterization or variabilization, you simply use your dollar variable and you can place the value over there, and that value will be replaced to all other rest of the things where you use the script level. But here it's not the case. So within the Kubernetes environment, making the things parameterization is a little bit different concept. So here you have to install your Helm chart, helm.exe file in here. It's like you have to place your Helm within your local system. You have to add your path to your environment variables, and you have a lot much to go within here. So how can you have your Helm chart created? Using a Helm chart, how can you create your variabilization? How can you use a parameterization in here? So again, the way you parameterize is different, guys. It's not the same thing what you saw earlier. So see here, I'll show you one example. This is what your parameterization looks like. So here, instead of replicas, earlier you just had 10 or 20 or whatever it is in here. But now you're trying to pull the values of a replica from some kind of file in here. So your file is available in here, so values file. So this is the value file, and replica equals to 2. So based upon this value, it's trying to replace the things within my main file in here, and it start any things in here. So how it's happening? What is the format you have to follow when you're trying to go with parameterization within your Kubernetes environment? How do you try to make sure all this Helm has been try to initialized successfully within your local system? So we'll see this in your Mondays class again. Okay, so we have more respect to namespaces and your Helm charts. We'll see slowly, not a problem. So the Helm chart related stuff and all those things we'll be seeing in your Mondays class, so that it's a kind of a new concept to variable to make your things parameterized within your Kubernetes environment. So the way you see is totally different in here. It's not so simple. It's not like very hard in here. It's not like what you said earlier. The way you process will be different when compared to your normal process what we had earlier cases. Okay. So any questions, guys? Okay, then I'll stop here for today. So we'll go with your new concept Helm. How can you download a Helm? How can you place your environment variables? All those things slowly one by one in your Mondays class, so that we can start parameters the value within your deployment or your pod or for your service, whatever, wherever you use it, whatever you use it, we'll try to parameterize it. So the format to parameterize it, what is the syntax of to follow, and what the process you have to follow, we'll discuss all those things in your Mondays class back in again. Okay.
Tom.
Okay then, guys, we wind up for today. We'll meet again back on Monday, same time again. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.